This video is going to show you how to install your Geronimo trigger system from Airborne Arms. You will need a punch that is smaller than your trigger and hammer pins. Look like this. You'll need an Allen wrench or flat screwdriver for your pistol grip, and a rubber mallet's always handy. First, for safety, always check to make sure that your weapon is empty before taking it apart. Then, without dry firing it, we're going to put it on fire and release the hammer up here. Stick it in our vise. First step, take your punch right here on your hammer pin and just tap it through nice and gentle till it comes out. Grab your hammer pin, grab your hammer, pull it out. Then we're going to loosen the pistol grip. Now you don't have to take it all the way out. The trick here is if you just take this loose enough to where you can make your safety selector go to what would normally be 3-round burst or full auto on a mil-spec M16 or M4, like that, that is going to allow enough room for you to lift your trigger system out. So we're going to just tap out your trigger pin. Then you've got your disconnector, and your trigger should come right out. Different sizes. The smaller one is for the set screw on the trigger shoe. The two larger ones are for the JP anti-walk pins. We've got lightweight trigger spring from JP Enterprise, a lightweight hammer spring, and a reliability hammer spring from JP. We're going to use the lightweight here for this build. This has our straight anodized trigger shoe with ambidextrous chamfers so that your finger is consistently in the same spot every time. The trigger body, which comes with our patent pending M.S.A.T technology, allowing you to swap out the shoe shapes. Our reduced weight race hammer, which leaves a little bit more mass right behind where it hits the firing pin. The rest of it allows from the time that you drop the trigger to the time that the hammer hits the firing pin. It's just that much quicker. Doesn't allow you to move the rifle anymore and allows for more accurate shots. Our disconnector. Now these three pieces here have all been precision ground to work together with each other. So don't get this disconnector mixed up with any of your other disconnectors you might have lying around. Then we have our oversized JP anti-walk pins. There are 2 of them. Now to prep this system, I'm going to take your trigger shoe and your trigger. It's going to slide on from the front, and we made these intentionally very tight fits. So you need to make sure that it seats all the way to the rear before tightening your set screw here. Now this set screw is going into 7075 T6 aluminum, so you want to be sure not to over tighten it. What I do is I leave the short end of the Allen wrench sticking out, then just using a couple fingers without trying to kill anything, snug it down in there. Now the aluminum threads are actually going to expand and lock that set screw in place, so you don't need to go crazy on it. Then we're going to take our lightweight race hammer, the hammer spring we chose, going to line it up just like this, put it over both of these nubbins, like so. Our lightweight trigger spring, we can do the same thing. This bar here is going to tuck right up in this little nook there, like so. And then we're just going to stretch both sides over the trigger nubbins. I believe that is their official name. Like so. The disconnector is going to sit right in here. That hole will line up with those holes, and it's going to sit right over this disconnector spring in the rear of the trigger. And we're going to be pushing in on that to line up these holes when we're inserting the anti-walk pins. To get these ready, I just take one side off. Make sure they don't go anywhere. They're small bolts of each one so that we can insert it from the side. Once you're set up like so, we're ready to stick it in your rifle. First step, after we prepared our trigger and have the spring on and the disconnector in correctly, I'm going to drop that in, making sure that these two prongs don't go through the hole that your trigger bow goes through. Fitting that in, you can see why we push the safety selector over to the 3-round burst or automatic. Gives us enough room to drop this all the way in. Then we'll take our JP anti-walk pin, start to insert it here, and now I'm going to look down inside and line up the holes. And you won't have to hit it, you won't have to force it. If it's not going in, it's because it's very, very, very finely ground to fit. So just work it around until it starts going in by itself. Now it's hit up against the disconnector. So now I'm going to start to adjust where the disconnector sits and give it a little bit of wiggle. Till it goes through. Make sure it's all the way through to the other side, but not sticking out the other side. And now we'll take this tiny little bolt, start it in on the other side, and make sure the safety goes over to fire, down to safe. Now we'll take the two larger Allen wrenches, one from either side, put them in, and screw the bolts in. Now these oversized anti-walk pins are designed to be wider than your receiver is, so they're not going to push in on your receiver here. If they did, that would cause binding in your trigger and it would affect performance. So don't be afraid if they're sticking out a little on one side or the other. As long as your set screws are put down. Again, for torque specs, I just use the short end and my fingers to tighten it down. I'm not cranking on it. Now we've got our hammer with the lightweight hammer spring we chose. These two prongs here have to tuck behind that set screw that you just put in back here, or the anti-walk pin that you put in. So I'm going to tuck them in back here, then I'm going to fold them forward like so before I start putting this anti-walk pin through the whole assembly. Now because these are so tight, I actually have to bend this hammer down before I start reaching. And again, we're not forcing it, just wiggling it. Get it to go all the way through, like so. Take your bolt from your other side. Start it in. Take our two Allen wrenches. Got them down. Now last step, we're going to make sure that our safety selector is still clicking. We're going to tighten this pistol grip down. Check to make sure our safety is still working. Now we get to do a functions test. You're not going to want to dry fire these without your upper on, but just to show you what the function test does, I'm going to leave it off and just catch it with my finger. So the first thing we need to do is put it on safety and make sure that it does not fire. Now we're going to put it on fire. Again, I'm catching this, but I'm just going to show you what it does. When it shoots, I want you to hold your trigger shoe down, let it go up, push this back down so it engages, and then slowly let go of your trigger shoe, and it should click. If it jumps, when you slowly let go to where it jumps and fires another round, that's not safe. Something went wrong in the installation process. As long as we're doing this, it shoots again, we can put it on safe, it won't shoot, we're good to go. Now America has an awesome Geronimo trigger system.